The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the ECAT staff or board of directors. Lighting for ECAT production provided by the Avery Lee Williams Family Foundation.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Topic Time with Harrison Young. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Topic Time with Harrison Young. This is yet another milestone show for me. It is my 65th birthday. I cannot believe I've lived this long, and we're having an incredible show tonight. We have it all in the family, like Dingbat and Meathead. My brother, Evan, he's my guest tonight. He's got a lot to talk about. He was a boxing handicapper, and he's a realtor, and he's done a lot of other cool stuff. But of course, before we get to him, just like anyone else, we got to read these incredible underwriters. We got some new ones, and then we will proceed per usual. So, we have the 1048 Bar and Grill in Randolph. They're a new one. We have Scott's Fine Wines and Spirits in South Easton. They're a new one. We have Adele Style Barbershop in North Easton. They're a new one. We have Smokey's Almost Famous Hot Dogs in Rainham. We have Johnny Macaroni's Restaurants, 3 locations, 2 in East Bridgewater, 1 in Halifax. We have One Good Credit in Brockton. We have Madigan Land Surveying in Middleborough. We have the Riverside Cafe in Wareham, open 6 days a week, all except Wednesdays, 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. They have DoorDash and they deliver, and they also make the best breakfast from Boston to the Cape in Wareham. We have Lynch's Towing, Auto, Cycle, and Truck Center in Brockton, 1 number for towing, 1 number for projects. My pal Lynchy there is always in search of new scrap metal, wheels, anything to do with transportation. He handles it all here in Brockton. We have Brian's Barbershop in Kingston. We have Good Old Dave's Automotive in Hanson on Route 58. We have Pal's Driving School in Middleborough with Tom and Dave setting up classes for February. We have Salon Giovanni in Marshfield. We have Kingston Auto Body in Kingston. We have Boombox in Middleborough. We have Grant's Rental in Bridgewater. We have Diesel Plus Unlimited in Whitman. We have Tom Auto in Middleborough. We have Doggy Boutique, all breed professional grooming for dogs and cats, run by my great next door neighbor, Debbie Shadell in Brockton. We have Countertops Express in North Attleboro, experts in the installation and removal of quartz and granite. We have the Country Whip Sweet Shop in Acushnet. We have Haven Psych Psychiatric Services right here in the building in room 211. We have RW Carpet and Flooring in Norton covering floors for 50 years. We have Joe's Diner in Taunton, and we have Evan Young Realty, represented by this guy right here, Evan Young, my brother, who, if you're looking for a new home, whether you want a beautiful house in the country or just a dilapidated tenement in a horrible slum, he's the guy to talk to. And so Evan Young, how you doing? So glad you came in and did my show tonight.
Yeah, good to be here. Yeah, geez, all these years of doing the show, I've never been on. I saw one filming once, and
well, actually, that's not entirely true. You were partly on 7 years ago on September 28th of 2017 when we had Mr. Vinny Paz.
oh, did I get in? That's what.
Yeah,
okay, that's
he called
what
us, called us around back. But
yeah, we did get in for a bit. Yeah, I did. Yeah.
I've grown so much in the show since then. The people at these TV stations are so much cooler. I'm not saying that they weren't cool, but I mean, I really found the families of, for Topic Time Nation here and in Area 58 and in Wareham, even though I haven't done a show there in over a year. It's just the way it's worked out. Well, all right. Well, we're going to profile you tonight. Now, obviously, I know what you were like as a kid because I've known you your whole life.
That's right. There's no secrets in that regard.
No secret to that regard. Now, but here's the thing. Now, historically you're a boxing trainer. You've dabbled in the sport of boxing. You still do. You love boxing. As I recall, if I'm not mistaken, I'll tell me if I'm right. The Thriller, it was a big fight 50 years ago. I believe it was October 30th, 1974. Wasn't it between Foreman and Ali, and it was in Zaire?
Yeah, that was their third fight. Ali and
Foreman was it?
The Thriller in Manila was Ali and
that was
Joe Frazier.
Frazier. But the one I'm talking, it seems to me that would seem to have been the turning point when you sort of became such a fan of boxing, when you saw those two guys slugging it out, and you thought to yourself, "This is something I want to cover for the rest of my life."
Well, I did used to watch it quite a bit in the '70s as a kid, so I mean, I was well aware of Ali.
Right.
You
Remember,
know.
you were only a kid yourself then. You were, like you said, you were only like 11 years old in 1975. But you and or 70, right, 74. So you were 11. You were 11, and that's when I sort of remember you really taking an interest in the sport. Like like you really wanted to cap on it.
Yeah, I definitely had an interest in it. I watched everything I could back in those days. It was on network TV. So,
Right.
So on Saturday afternoon, they had all the major marquee fights, which was great.
Yep.
It's a little different today with.
So there's much more coverage.
Well, there's more coverage today, but it's different. It's all kind of gone behind apps, which are available on smart TVs and whatnot. So
Okay.
if you know how to get to it, you can watch a lot of content, but it's not just on your normal TV anymore.
Right.
But anyway, as to back to that time, yeah, I was very interested in it. And as we were growing up, we had a burgeoning middleweight named Marvin Hagler,
I've heard of him.
who was in that time he was only in his second year as a pro in 1974, and he was on the climb. And we all, in our city, we all knew about him, and we followed him, and everybody thought he was the goods, and he was going to become, had a good chance of becoming a champ, and that was a great ride. So. Yeah, I just had a real interest in it, and over the years of just watching it and observing it, after a period of time when I got to be a certain age, I realized I may want to make a bet on this. This was my first real wager on an event was in 1989.
Okay.
And that was the third fight between Sugar Ray Leonard and Roberto Duran. And at that point in time, that was before the internet was prevalent. But there was a publication out there called the Boxing Flash.
Okay.
And they had all the boxing lines on it. And there was a guy named Herb Lembeck out of Vegas that made the lines. So I'd look at the lines, and I actually started to check out some of these fights could be bettable, because back then you couldn't just go on your computer and bet.
Yeah, because it wasn't legal.
Yeah, it wasn't on the internet. There was no internet. There was no phone calls.
A lot more complicated then than it is today.
Yeah, the only venue or jurisdiction you could wager on in the United States was Nevada.
Right.
So I thought to myself, you know what? On that outcome of Leonard and Duran, I thought, I'm pretty sure I know how this is going to go. So I took a large sum of money, 5 figures, low 5 figures.
Okay.
And went out there with the intention of
out to Vegas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Betting on Sugar Ray Leonard, and he won a easy.
This was 2 years after we knocked Hagler out.
He didn't knock Hagler out.
I don't mean knock him out, but knock him off as the champion.
Yeah, he decisioned him.
That's what I meant
kind
to
of
say.
a quasi controversial
Oh,
fight.
I know.
But yeah, so I went out there. I made a pretty good pile of money, and the hook was in. I was all in on it. I made contacts out there. I actually met Herb, the odds maker that was involved in Vegas. He used to work at Caesar's Palace.
Right.
We connected. Every time I went out there, we would convene and talk about the fights and, and all that. And, we were just kind of two guys just shooting the breeze about it.
Bantering boxing.
Bantering boxing, and
Okay. Is he still with us?
No, he died about 5-6 years ago.
Oh, okay.
He's probably in his mid-80s.
Yeah,
unfortunately, but he did live most of his adult years out in Vegas.
Did you keep in touch with him all the years till he passed?
We lost touch a little bit because I wasn't going out there as much once I was able to access online wagering. So in the early 2000s, betting changed. You could actually do it online. At that time, in the early 2000s, it was available on a lot of offshore books, which a lot of them were out of San Jose, Costa Rica, other places in the Caribbean and whatnot. And I found available betting venues in those locations, and used it pretty well. The wagering industry as a whole has gone through a lot of crazy ups and downs in the last 20 years.
What about the popularity of MMA? Does that kind of screw things up too, throw a monkey wrench into boxing? I'm just wondering, because I've heard stories to that effect.
No, MMA and boxing coexist very well.
Oh, they do? Okay.
Yeah. I don't handicap that, but I do know some sharp people that do, so I do dabble in that a little bit.
Oh, you do? Okay.
It's a combat, I understand it enough to do it. I don't, it might be 10% of what I do,
I understand,
or less.
right.
But I do that a little bit. That's the only other sport I will play. I don't do anything with football,
Except when
baseball.
you did bet on the Super Bowl in 2002, and you bet the underdog Patriots, and you made a nice clump of cash.
Yeah, I mean,
every now and then something looks
yeah.
really tempting. I'm thinking I'm not going to do it, but I'm hoping that I'm so psyched for the San Diego Padres to win the World Series, and they've already knocked off the Braves, and they're going to be playing the Dodgers, and they are smoking hot right now.
Yeah, I would think you could probably get.
But I'm not going to bet on it, because if I bet on it, that's going to change the whole outcome.
Well, it really wouldn't, but they probably are a significant underdog, I would think.
Yeah, they are. But the way they're going, it looks like. But you don't want to get off too much. Get off the subject. All right.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. After you became, you inundated yourself. I don't. Well, inundated you when you incorporated your mindset into the boxing betting world. Then next thing you know, you were working with Goody Petronelli, training Hagler's guys that he trained, that Goody trained.
Well,
that Hagler trained with Goody.
Yeah, early on in the
90s.
years that I was starting to wager, probably, this was a couple of years after,
Right, it was. I
did
remember. And Goody got his attention. He thought you were intelligent enough to knew the game, not just what makes fighters winners, but also the intense part of training them, and that's why you were part of his team.
Yeah, I'll tell you how that worked out. Goody and I had a good relationship. I met him through my friend Palmerson Eiffel, who was boxing up there at the time. So Goody and I would talk, and he said, you're a great guy. Come up here anytime. So I would, go up there and shoot the breeze a little.
Meaning his gym.
Yeah.
Right.
He was Marvin's, trainer, and Marvin was only about 4 years out of retirement at that point. So would always shoot the breeze, talk boxing, blah, 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 talk who we think is going to win, and he'd get my opinion on things, I'd get his. And then I did have a brief time when I was managing a fighter that Goody brought in from Canada, a kid named Sid Vanderpool.
Sid, yeah, I remember Sid very well. Vanderpool.
Yeah, good kid, really good guy. That was kind of short-lived. I jumped into that a little young. He won 6 fights in a row, and then he got stopped in a match, and I just I jumped out of that particular role in boxing.
Okay, that's when you stopped doing the training.
I stopped managing him. Yeah, I mean, I was doing strength training with Sid, but I wasn't really his boxing trainer. But I was his manager, and I kind of was, his confidant, so to speak. But,
okay.
But I just felt, after that loss, I didn't like how that loss it didn't sit with me well, the way he kind of lost at that time. And I let him go. But Sid's a great guy. He actually, through a lot of years of persevering, he forged out a pretty good career. He went back to Canada, won some fights. He actually ended up he became a title challenger twice. 6 years after we had parted.
Okay.
He lost, but he went the distance with one of the all-time greats, whose name is Bernard Hopkins.
Okay.
And he acquitted himself very well. And then in 2004, he got another title shot.
Wow.
In the 168-pound division against a fighter named Jeff Lacey.
So I recall he was not a heavy guy. He was wasn't he in a lower weight class when I knew him?
Well, he was a middleweight, and he was, in the second
168 is not middleweight, is it?
He was 160 in his first title shot, and he was 168 in his second. So he kind of was 160 and then jumped up to 168, which isn't unusual. Fighters often do jump up in weight as they get older.
Or down, depending on what they want. I mean, it seems to me Hagler had to go down in weight when he fought Sugar Ray in '87.
No, he didn't go down in weight. They fought at the division limit of 160.
Oh, okay.
Marvin was a guy that never veered off. He always fought. Every fight was at the 160-pound division. That was his thing. He never went up. He never went down. Very consistent. Okay. But Sid was a great kid. He did very well. He's doing very well now. He's got he teaches white collar boxing in Canada. He does really well.
White collar boxing? No, what can that be? That sounds
well.
Like
I mean, you
boxing.
train people, you hit the bag, you get them in shape. I mean, they're not going to turn professional generally. He might have a couple of decent fighters, but it's not about that. He's just more of training people, getting them fit. And
what about that other guy, Drake? What's his deal? Wasn't he a champion? I thought he was.
Drake did win a fringe world title. There's different recognized belts.
Right.
Drake did win an IBO belt. It's not as highly recognized as some of the others. But
you trained him too, didn't you?
I did some strength training with him, and we were good friends. I love Drake. Drake's a great guy. And Drake does have one great win on his record. He upset the great James Toney, who was
I remember the name.
3-time world champion.
There you go.
Drake, that was his crowning moment. That was a great win. It's like a 30-1 underdog in that fight.
Did he retire after winning that fight?
No, he had a couple more. and he just wasn't good. He wasn't able to get him the fights, and he was getting older.
Yeah.
Like, he's from Malawi, Africa, so
Okay.
his birth certificate stated 1964, but he was actually born in 1959, your year.
My year. Wow.
So when he beat James Toney, he was already well into his 40s.
Okay.
And he just was tired at this point, and he just kind of, the career just kind of petered out. But, you know, solid guy, really good fighter. He did fight for a legitimate world title, too, against Virgil Hill, and he lost the decision there.
Okay.
But, you know, fought very well. Really, he was a little bit crude as a fighter, but super strong, super tough, hard puncher. So. Well,
you obviously know. I mean, you're pretty astute when it comes to knowing this. You know, the intricacies of every fighter that you follow.
Well, I mean, that's part of the whole handicapping
is.
shtick of it, because if you're gonna, all fighters have different attributes, and usually, fighters are a certain way, and they don't often change. As what the great old trainer Customato used to say, "A man born round don't die square."
Okay,
meaning like you don't change your colors, you
right.
know. So there's certain guys that are very quick fighters, but they might be front runners and they might get very fatigued late in the fight. There's certain guys that are slow, but they have great stamina and they can take a punch. And
good chin, they say, right?
Yeah, and they might be losing 6, 7 rounds, but by the time the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th, they're coming on strong and they're wearing guys out. So you have to kind of plug in their styles on.
What would you say Rocky Marciano was? Because after a while, let's face it, you can't. It's pretty hard to not say he's the best of all time. It's just like Tom Brady is the quarterback.
Well, I would disagree with that. I respect Rocky.
That's okay.
Yeah, let me just explain.
Go ahead.
So Rocky was, he fought in an era where the heavyweights were very light. Most of his fights, he weighed 184. Most of the people he fought weighed in the 180s, 190s. There was a very small era of heavyweights.
Okay.
He did knock out Joe Louis, but he was well past his prime.
Joe was when he knocked
Joe Louis.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, I mean, he got a lot of guys late in their prime. It was a weak era. It was sort of between the top of the Louis era and the beginning of the Ali era.
Yeah.
And also Rocky missed Sonny Liston, which might not have been good for him either. Sonny Liston was coming into view in the late 50s, early 60s.
Yeah, I remember.
And he was
64.
a killer.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, everybody thought he was going to crush Ali, who was known as Cassius Clay then. But so Rocky was in a soft era. But that being said, his toughness was undeniable. Just incredibly tough, incredible toughness, incredible stamina, incredible will. The guy could bring it from the first round to the 15th round, and he just basically broke guys down. I mean, in the fight that he won that title with the famous 13th round right-hand knockout against Jersey Joe Walcott, who was about 40 in that fight, Walcott. Rocky was well behind on points, but
he was. Yeah, I remember I watched that fight on ESPN Classic, and I remember he was losing, and if he hadn't knocked him out, he would have lost the fight.
Well, that's my point. So
yes.
He was wearing him down. So he wasn't as fast, he wasn't as slick.
In the first 6 or 7 rounds, Rocky looked like he was doomed, like just a matter of time before
you're making my point, that he was just that guy that just grinds people down, and by the time it got to be the 13th round, he was tired from hitting him in the face. He was tired, and Rocky was still there. And Rocky landed that shot and won the title.
I remember Rocky was narrating that, and he was saying, "I had sweat in my eyes, and I had blood, and I didn't know, and all I could see was the blood and the sweat."
Yeah, he was a really willful guy. I mean, the guy had incredible. His stamina, chin, and will were, you couldn't say anybody really had any more. Deeper attributes than those that he had in that regard.
Yeah, and he was, from what I understand, he could, the strength of his punch was like that, like almost like a torpedo hitting a submarine.
Well, I mean, he was a very hard puncher for his weight. I mean, he weighed 184, 185.
Which is considered light by heavyweight standards.
Right now, he'd be between a cruiserweight and a light heavyweight, because
They changed it.
Well, light heavyweight was always a division. That's 175.
Okay.
But he was fighting just a little over that. And now there's a cruiserweight division that's 200. So he'd be a very small cruiserweight today.
Okay.
And the heavyweights today, Some of these guys are 260, 270,
Like Buster Douglas
280,
was, right? Wasn't that what he was?
290. Well, he was about 240, but you got guys like, I'm not sure you're up to date on today's
I'm not
era,
up to date at all. That's why you're here.
but you got Tyson Fury about 6'9", 275, 280, Anthony Joshua 6'6", 250, Daniel Dubois 6'5", 250, just these massive guys. So it's like, it's a whole different.
These are the young fighters of today.
Yeah, these are some of the top guys.
These are guys in their
today.
20s and 30s and 40s.
Right.
Younger than us, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So now, all these years later, you've been doing this. You know, you've handicapped boxing. You got mentioned on Sports Center, which was awesome. I remember they said boxing shop. Evan Young says this and that. I remember.
Yeah, I was working for them a little bit. Like I was part of a ESPN Insider column.
Oh, you were? Okay. I never knew that.
That we would write articles and handicap the fights. A friend of mine, Johnny Wilds, brought me into that, and they brought me in. And then somehow they discontinued it. Unfortunately, I enjoyed doing it, but they did.
Well, you got a good mention on there.
Yeah. No, it was kind of cool. Yeah,
unlike me, you don't toot your horn too much anymore. So that's probably But today you're still up on the current boxes and you handicap.
Yeah, I'm still active in it. Yeah, I still look at everything. Look at the odds, do my analysis, watch the tape. Watching tape is part of it. Another big part of it is there's a website that I use to start the handicapping. It's called BoxRec. Okay. And what that is it's a database. It's an incredible database that has every fighter's record, and every opponent has a link to their record, so you can really see who's fought whom. And I can almost look at that. I mean, I wouldn't rely on that exclusively, but I can look at that and almost handicap a fight by looking at that, because I've seen enough people over the years that I can decipher their class. Right. Just like when people read the racing form for horses, they can, horses that run in maiden races in East Oshkosh is different than the horses that run in the Kentucky Derby. Just like with boxing, you can tell if someone's been on a much lower level and competed against lower level guys or competed against the highest level guys. Like, for example, there's a lot of times where there are fighters that have many losses, but they had those losses earlier in their career. And then when you look at their record closely, you realize lately they've been winning and they've fought really good guys. Yeah. I can't count the amount of times where I've picked against an undefeated guy that was a favorite, because his record was, I could see he was in with no one special. So it was easy, I could kind of decipher that this guy has 7 losses. Okay. But he's been in with iron and he's forged himself and gained that experience, gained that,
fortitude.
Yeah, well, the experience and just getting better over the years. Some guys do improve quite a bit late, in the middle and late in their career.
Even if they lose, even if they're knocked out, they still manage to. That's
sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes.
Sometimes a knockout can ruin a guy too.
Right, of course,
it's all different.
Everybody's different. That's where you come in. That's where you sort of know. You can sort of tell the difference between the two. Well, the two types, most of the time.
Well, there's an interesting fight that happened a few weeks ago that was good. That was kind of analogous to this stuff we're talking about. Okay. And that was, I mentioned these guys just a few minutes ago, the heavyweights. It was Daniel Dubois and Anthony Joshua. Right. Now, Joshua was about a 4-1 favorite. Okay. And pretty much everybody on the planet thought he was going to beat Daniel Dubois. Okay. Now, Dubois had come off a couple of losses a few years ago. One fight, people say he quit, but he had a broken orbital bone. Wow. So he took a knee and took a count, so he lost. And then in another fight, he kind of was doing okay, and then he kind of folded again. So people looked at him as a talented guy, but someone that would quit under pressure, But since those 2 losses, he had forged together 3 or 4 really impressive wins against pretty good fighters. And he proved something that he didn't show before. He showed he had the fortitude. He showed he had the chin and the heart. So, and I knew he could punch. And I knew he was young and fast. So I looked at that, I plugged it in, and I went with him over Joshua. And there's, some pretty sharp people were not, most people were not on the other side. So I was really, pretty pleased with that. That's the kind of pick I like, where you kind of can really you just see it. You just kind of really
Right. You get a knack for it.
You see it, and it comes true just like how you think it is. It's great. And then obviously, if the guy's an underdog, you're gonna win a pile of money on the
Of course. Yeah.
underdog play. So
Have you done any? Have you gone to Vegas at all lately? Probably not, right? Or Atlantic City?
No, I don't. I've been to Vegas probably 30, 40 times, and it's been many years since I've been there. I do not like what they've done to it.
Okay.
Just to we can get off the point for a minute. Vegas has been built up so much. It's become a place where, as the great Yogi Berra said about a crowded bar, he says, "This bar is so crowded, no one goes there no more."
Okay.
Like Vegas is the same. It's just people with their shirts hanging over, weighing 400,
the near riffraff
400 pounds, walking around with beers in the street. There's no room anywhere.
Okay. Wow.
Before it was like a nice, slick place. You come in, you do your wagering, you get a free meal because you just boom, boom, boom. But now it's just become a destination.
It's kind of just like
destination
a
spot for the middle America, and it's just
okay.
It's just not my cup of tea. I don't like it. I mean, I would go again if there was a big event that I was going to see, but to visit there and hang around, no, it's just not.
Yeah. Yeah, you understand. Yeah, you know what things you're apt to understand change when you see it, and if it's
it changed.
Yeah. Okay. I've never been there.
Changed for the worse. A lot of old school people feel the same way, but
yeah,
it's busy. It's busy. It's burgeoning. It's flourishing, but I just don't care for how for what it's become.
Okay. All right. Well, that's great. So that you gave us quite a good analysis of your boxing knowledge, and I always say Brockton has had a lot of people that are potentially world famous. I think Rocky was #1, but I think I'm trying to become it, doing what I do, and I think doing what you do, you have a certain your foot in the door and the opportunity to do it too, if you want to, and I think to some degree you already have.
Well, I'm not looking for fame.
You're not, but
I'm just. Yeah, you are.
Yeah,
I just came in to have a little conversation with you.
You did a great job.
Which is nice, yeah.
Yeah, I don't mean from the show. I mean just in general.
Yeah.
Your life. And guess what now? We're under 5 minutes. I hope you had fun talking to me. I hope you covered
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, I'd come back anytime.
Okay, yeah, exactly. Well, I know you didn't want to give any shouts out to anybody. Are you sure about that? I mean, your son, your wife.
Oh, sure. Hi, JoJo. Hi, Jason. How are you?
Okay, that works.
We'll see you in a little while.
Yeah, see you at our parents' house for my birthday. Yeah. Well, but this is what I always ask, a couple of things. First of all, even though, I mean, do you have anything like coming up on the horizon about boxing that you might, that you want to mention? Because I just want to make sure that if there's something important, you don't forget it. If not, that's fine, but you tell me.
Actually, there is not this weekend. There's some fights this weekend that I will be looking at.
Right.
There always is. Sometimes the under-the-radar stuff is, the money's just as green if you win those bets as the big fights.
Of course.
But there's a massive fight next weekend. This is probably one of the most important unification fights in the last
championship
10
fight?
years.
Championship fight?
It's a light heavyweight fight. This is the 175-pound division.
Okay.
And these are clearly the two best guys in the world, and the winner will have all the belts at the end.
Okay, wow. Glad I asked.
And the participants are Dmitry Bivol from Russia. They're both from Russia, actually.
Okay.
Actually, no, Bivol might be Ukrainian, I think. And,
what a perfect
Artur
matchup.
is the Russian.
Okay. Where are they fighting?
They're both undefeated.
Okay.
The fight, geez, you had to ask. I'm not sure where the venue is. I think it could be Vegas, believe it or not, but
okay.
I'd have to check. I'm not going to check my phone.
Yeah, you don't have to check your phone, but at least we know.
No, actually, it's in Saudi Arabia.
Wow.
Yeah.
All the trouble spots on earth are getting represented in this fight. That's great.
Well, I can give you a quick thing on that.
Go ahead.
There's a guy, Turki Al-Sheikh, that he's he's a oil baron of some sort, and he's a multi-billionaire. And what he's done to boxing is he started to take a lot of the promoters, like a lot of promoters would have one fighter and another promoter would have another, and they wouldn't make the best matches because they would fight about the money and the venue and where it was going to be shown, and they just couldn't meet in the middle. But this guy's offering so much money that he's getting all these good fights to happen in the last year.
Okay.
And this is one of them. This was a fight that could not be made until Turki Al-Sheikh came into play. And like I said, these two guys are 1 and 2. BWF's 20 and 0.
You say 1 and 2, like one.
No, number 1 and 1 and 2.
Number 1 and 2. Gotcha.
And we're gonna find out who's number 1 after.
Okay.
BWF is 20 and 0. All 20 wins by knockout.
Wow.
B-Ball is about 20. He's like 23 and 0 with maybe 12 knockouts. He doesn't knock out as many guys, but he's a great stylist. He's very fast. So it's an amazing fight. They're both tremendous. B-Ball is coming off a recent win over one of the best in boxing named Canelo Alvarez. That was a big upset.
Okay.
A couple of years ago. So it's a tremendous fight, and
don't miss it.
I'll give you my hedge now. I'm going to go with Beterbiev.
Okay, you heard it here. All right, you did a great job. You ready to wrap the show up? I have one favor to ask, and I didn't think you'd do it. If I snap my fingers, please, you can snap along. Please don't bang the desk. A lot of my male guests have done that, and it'll just make the CD jump.
I won't bang the desk.
All right, folks, wrapping up another great episode of Topic Time. Just make sure my CD's working, ready to roll. There it is. Dropping off and snapping out.
Lighting for ECAT production provided by the Avery Lee Williams Family Foundation.